Welcome back. You're watching Trade of the Week with me, Zinati Kuma. Today we bring you a technical analysis on Tiger Brands, Sappi and the Rand dollar. And joining me for that conversation is Roberto Pietropado, co-head of trading at Unum Capital. Thank you so much for your time, Rob, and for joining us in the studio. Quite interesting trades that you have here, a little bit of diverse outlook. Tiger Brands, did you trade this because it came out with the results today, or was it already on your radar?
No, thanks for having me. No, you know, the market has been pretty sideways lately because of the anticipation of the elections. Yeah. On the trading desk at Unum Capital, my trades are normally very short-term in nature, and it stood out for me. I did notice a little bit of different or weird price action, a lot of bullishness behind the share, and coincidentally they dropped their trading update this morning. So that's a coincidence, but yes, it did stand out for me, and it is a trade that looks pretty good at the moment.
It's quite interesting that you say that there's been a lot of bullishness, because I was also looking at the chart, and it seemed to have found a bottom at around October last year. I know that it kind of has been trading sideways over the last few months, but really there's just been a bullish trend, which for me has been quite surprising, because I think that with Tiger Brands, you never really know what the market sentiment is, but I guess maybe from a long-term investor kind of point of view, but maybe things quite different from a short-term investor's point of view.
Yeah, look, it's all about trading opportunities, but you're right. Tiger Brands fundamentally has struggled.
Yes.
You can tell that from the price action, as you said, sort of most of last year. It just wallowed at the bottom there, and then all of a sudden got a nice kick up. And fundamentally, I think Tiger Brands is well positioned. They are spending their money properly in the right places. Their strategy is in place. But you know, from a technical point of view, trading off the charts, when the opportunity presents itself, it doesn't matter if it's Tiger Brands or anybody else. We're in the trade to try and see if we can make a short-term profit out of price action.
Well, let's actually look at that chart right now and how you're positioning yourself.
So what I like about this chart, this is what caught my attention, and just to bring you up to speed, this is based on Friday's closing prices. So none of today's price action is in this chart.
Well, what really hasn't been much.
Which hasn't been much, to be fair. But interestingly, so the way we always tell that a share is healthy is when it's trading above its 200-day moving average. That's normally an indication that it's tradable, it's healthy, price action is good, but what caught my eye is the fact that it broke above the shorter term 50-day moving average. That's where I start getting interested, and then we start looking at the other information that the price is telling you. We can tell that it closed at $207 on Friday, not knowing that the results were going to drop this morning. But having said that, there is a peak from sort of the beginning of 2003, and that's where everything went wrong for Tiger Brands in terms of price action reports. Their results weren't that great, but they, like you said, they did find a bottom, and that's the kind of peak that has piqued my interest. So again, it's a short-term trade. We're trying to profit from short-term moves, and that 50-day moving average, like I said, is what caught my attention, and I peg that at around $202. I think Tiger Brands at the moment in live trading is probably trading at around 204, 205 after the trading update. But interestingly for me is if we look down at the RSI, there is still strength in the price, and that gives me faith in buying the stock for the short term. It's definitely not a sell. It's anybody who's held the stock knows it's been a painful ride for a long time. But us short-term guys, we've now been given a buy signal, and this is where we're trying to take advantage of the price action. It is a little bit overbought in the short term, but stocks can stay overbought for extended periods of time. So I don't think Tiger Brands is going to come much lower than this. We might get a bit sideways until after the election, but it gives us time to get into the trade.
Is there a target price there, kind of, you know, in terms of the upside that you could see in the short term?
Given the short-term momentum, I don't think it's impossible for it to go and retest that level where it broke down from. I pegged
that peak of 225.
I pegged that at about $225, and I think a really good trade with a proper 2-to-1 a payoff ratio gives a good opportunity for a nice short-term election. Let's hope things get better trade. So yeah, I'm calling it a buy at 205 with a take profit near that 225. I've actually dropped it by about 5 rand. That peak was at 230, so we're not going to get too greedy on this one, but anywhere near 225 I think is a fair profit for a short-term trade in the election.
Okay, it's going to be quite interesting actually to see, because I mean, as you're talking about elections, there seems to be a bullish sentiment all of a sudden when it comes to SA Inc. stocks, and I guess in a situation like that, if things go in a good way, you could say that it's a tide that should lift all ships, including Tiger Brands. And it's also obviously quite interesting in terms of what they're doing internally, particularly with their strategy and also that management team that they've actually just gotten together. So it's going to be quite an interesting ride there as we look at the kind of long-term prospects of Tiger Brands. Well, let's go into paper and packaging. Sappi. That's also another one that I can never really get, because it's so cyclical, and you actually see it with the results, because also the fact that they report quarterly. They even released results earlier on this month. It seemed like they had a better second quarter than a quarter one, but now forecasting that they could be weaker numbers in the third quarter. How are you looking at that one? How are you trading it?
Well, look, this is a much longer view. Here we're looking at the weekly chart of Sappi, going all the way back to 2022. This stock has been so unloved for good reason. But now the technicals are starting to talk to me. And what's interesting about this Sappi chart is we can tell where the selling occurs. And this is for years, for the last 2 years now. The minute it gets anywhere near 60 bucks, the guys bail. However, this time the technicals are showing something slightly different. Also based on the weekly close of Friday, the next guess is what happens next, and this is what I like about sort of a breakout trade. Momentum is everything, but what we're looking for here, first of all, we can see that the RSI still shows a lot of strength on a weekly basis in the stock, and that has been the trend for quite a while now, for the whole year so far actually. And that piqued my interest. It has not been a great stock to trade or to be invested in, but us short-term traders, we're just interested in profit and where we can find it. And I think over the next few weeks, this is where we potentially could find it. Now, interestingly, if we go back all the way back to sort of 2017, 2018, that's where the first breakdown occurred. That's where everything went wrong for Sappi, and it was a one-way down for the stock. The share price went, I think, all the way down to sort of 18, 19 rand, if I'm not mistaken.
And I guess that's also why even still a lot of investors are still, especially veterans, why they're still quite nervous about Sappi. It's twice bitten, twice shy.
Absolutely. What we're looking for here is a bit more of a recovery in the share price. As you mentioned, they report quarterly. Their last numbers are pricing in sort of another weak quarter. But again, this is more of a medium-term trade, and a little bit of patience would pay off. However, when it comes to breakout trades, you don't get in until you get confirmation, and this is what I'm going to try and point out on this chart. So what we're looking for here, RSI is extremely strong. It is also a little bit overbought in the short term on a weekly basis. But what we are looking for here is for the stock to actually close a week off above 60 Rand. We can tell on Friday it closed at 57. There wasn't any selling. It closed near the high of the day, which is always bullish, and closing at the high of the week at the same time. So we like to see that kind of price action. What I'm looking for and what I'm waiting for is a Friday close above 60 bucks, and that will be my signal to get into this trade. So we're waiting for that. If it closes at 60, 61 Rand, that is where we'd be getting in. We're not going to get too greedy. However, the payoff ratio on this is quite nice. We're looking at a 3-to-1. The nice thing about a breakout trade is you know exactly where to put your stop loss. If this thing breaks back below 60 bucks, you know it's time. You were wrong. Let's get out, move on, and look for something else. But I do have a very strong feeling, I suspect strongly that this stock is definitely going to get that close above $60 given the next 7 to 14 days, and that's where we'd be looking to get in. So this is one to keep your eye on, not to chase, and I think you can capture between 15 and 20% on this on a short-term basis.
All right. Well, what about the currency, US dollar at, US dollar and rand exchange at this point, particularly as we have the elections coming up in 2 days?
My personal feeling is that a lot of optimism has been priced into the currency, and maybe prematurely so.
Okay.
Because we don't know what's going to happen, A, with the election, and B, after the elections. But what investors do like is stability and certainty. So having said that, if we look at the rand against the dollar, now these, I specifically chose this pair because of the range boundness of the rand versus the US dollar. You can see very clearly that it has been trading in a range sort of between 1950 and sort of, let's call it 1810. Now these are probably the easiest charts to trade if you can maintain a little bit of discipline. It's as simple as buying the bottom and selling the top if they're in, and we can see this has been in for a very, very, very long time. We've had a test now of that 18 rand to the dollar level. There's still a little bit of weakness, believe it or not, in the rand. So what I'd like to see is this bottom staying in place at 18 that we tested last week. A lot of investors like that. Some of our clients have already gone the other way. We've now shorted the rand and bought the dollar. And I think it would be a fair trade to think that there's no reason why the rand would weaken after the optimism has faded a little bit.
So wait, you're shorting the rand?
We're buying the dollar against
okay, all right.
We're targeting the range. So the bottom of the range I've put there at about 1801. We don't have to get greedy and hit 1938. I don't think we need to be that pessimistic on the currency. As long as we have a free and fair election, I think the currency will stabilize, and maybe we can get our own wheels rolling here. But it's all based on what turns out at the end. So my recommendation is this bottom of the range is the place to get in. We can buy it at current levels. I'm quite comfortable at buying it at around 1825, 1830. I'm sure we'll get a little bit of volatility over the next 3 days.
Of course,
but the nice thing about trading a range is when it breaks out the bottom of that range, you already know you're wrong, and it's time to change your mind and probably get out of that trade. So I think this is a nice, easy one. It's also a nice one to trade around the elections while we're sitting there on our day off. The markets don't close.
Of course.
So
especially the currency
I think this is a very, very interesting trade, and unfortunately I do think too much optimism has been priced into the local currency, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 1850, 1860.
And you maybe think that's why also it didn't break that 18 rand level against the US dollar. That it was too much already, because I think we did go to 1810 at some point.
We did. I think we touched 1805. But having said that, and look, I'm not a currency analyst. But the rand is already undervalued. So there's no reason it can't get stronger. But from a technical perspective, I think while the range is in place, we trade the range, and when anything changes, like all technicians, you trade what you see, not what you think.
All right, who knew you could play elections like this? Well, let's actually go into the education segment now. Earlier on, I think when you were talking about Sappi, you spoke about the breakout trade. What exactly is that? Breakout
trades, very, very nice trades because the chart tells you everything. You don't need to overanalyze it. Just if we can put this graphic up, you get a bullish breakout trade and you get a bearish breakout trade, and it's very simple. Once a major resistance point has been broken, if a stock is traveling upwards, you wait for that resistance to get broken. You may or may not see a retest of that resistance, which now becomes the new support. Once you've witnessed a breakout and there's a new high over a certain period of time, it is a very, very nice way or a good signal for you to get cautiously long. You can buy that share. And the beauty of these is if it breaks back down below that new support or the old resistance, you know that you are wrong. and it makes getting out very, very easy. Taking profit is a little bit harder because you don't know how much upside there is to a breakout, but breakouts are generally extremely bullish. So most of your upside trades will come from a breakout if those breaks hold and they continue in that direction.
Okay.
Obviously on the bearish side, exactly the same applies.
You can still get the same, yeah.
Same applies. You can go short to stock and you can continue following that trend until the trend changes. So they're very, very easy and normally very, very high percentage trades.
Yeah, and with Sappi, you see the bullish breakout resistance, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and really just giving us insights on how you're trading Sappi, Tiger Brands, and also the US dollar. It's going to be quite interesting also to see what happens with the rand in the next, I guess, week or so as we head to elections, and we obviously assess the aftermath of that. Thank you so much for your time, Rob. That was Unum Capital's co-head of trading, Roberto Pietropado.